Thank you for being here. My name is Millie Arbani-Thomas. I'm the president and CEO of METCO. What resonated with you about the research findings, and how does that relate to your own experience in the METCO program?
What resonated? A lot. I think because I'm a career coach, and I'll keep it short, I'm always interested in the outcomes, educational outcomes, test scores, and salary stuff. So I think it was just great to see this, and in my dissertation at the end, it's very limited, it's a very small sample size, it's all qualitative, which means I do all interviews. So I'm hoping to partner and be a part of the interviewing focus group type stuff. But I will say I'm just excited about the data, that we have it, because I had said we need longitudinal data. That was my last recommendation of my small research. So just excited about that overall.
The boys having a different experience than the females, that definitely resonated with me, as I recognize that, boys participating in extracurricular activities leads to more friendships, it leads to more, sleepovers back and forth, especially when you get to high school. When you get to high school, I found that even now as a director, it's definitely a little bit more challenging socially for our students, our female students, who look at the boys as their brothers, so they can't date the boys who they ride the bus with every day, right? They also have that stigma of dating a white person, maybe being able to connect there, and they don't participate in a lot of extracurriculars. So that resonates with me as a student, resonates with me as a director, as I always try to find innovative ways for our female students to make sure that they feel like they belong, and that this is where they can be, and they can be comfortable within themselves. Another thing that resonated with me was the guidance counselor piece. Obviously, I didn't know the numbers, but I do know that my guidance counselor was on top of me. All I had to do was put my college applications in the mailbox. She told me to pick 2 schools, and she provided me with 4 more. She gave me the stamps. There was no question in my mind that I was going to a 4-year school, leaving Wayland. That, as Millie mentioned, led to me. It was very different in Reading. The guidance counselor connection with the students wasn't the same as it was for me in Wayland. So last year, we flew to Atlanta to visit Clark, Atlanta, Spelman, and Morehouse, and I made sure that our guidance counselors.
Oh, no, sorry. I was meant to somebody else in the audience. Yeah, thank you.
And I made sure that our guidance counselors came with us on a trip so that they can experience what an HBCU is and actually walk the campus of an HBCU and hear from their admissions counselors and build relationships with them in Atlanta. That led to this year our guidance counselors taking the lead and making sure all of our students of color in Boston went to the Reggie Lewis Center for the HBCU Fair and invited HBCU reps to our school to speak directly to our students. So those are just a few things that resonated with me and how they connected to my experience and my role as a director.
What stuck out to me is being stuck into special education right away, right? So before I was tested, anything, you need to go to special education, right? And that could have been because of I might have been phonetically off, didn't know how to code switch yet, right? Whatever that might be, I noticed all of my peers were in learning center, right? And try to make sure when you're in a new environment, starting in 5th grade, I started in 5th grade, being in a place where you're already feeling like you're less than, right? As well as trying to figure out, I went to a school where everybody looked like me, to a school nobody looks like me, right? You have that identity crisis immediately, right? And so I'm constantly trying to instill in students that doesn't mean anything, right? Because the 3 people that were in my class, we all have doctorates now. So that doesn't mean anything, right? But at the time, as a 5th grader, I felt like, wow, I don't talk well. Wow, and then you come home and your friends in Boston say, you sound white, right? So then you have this weird tug and pull where you're like, well, where do I belong, right? I don't live in the suburbs. I don't live in these $1 million homes in Bedford. But at the same time, I'm not even recognized now in my own neighborhood. So that's what stuck out to me when I saw that data.
Thank you for that. No, I don't have to say it. But one thing, no real surprises for me when I was looking at the data. One thing that I thought was interesting and thought-provoking was around the access to more elite institutions, right? And the barrier that's there from a cost perspective. And it's all tied together just around kind of, how you start and whether or not you're on academic support or not, and kind of where you end up shooting for, right? Like your destination. But I think one of the biggest takeaways from that is it really starts at the grassroots level within the districts. Kurt's doing a lot of this work, but really letting METCO students know and families know METCO is not the destination, right? It's merely a stop on the journey. One thing that I was prompted to think about was really more research around mortality rates of METCO students in comparison to those that are not enrolled in the program. And also their contact with the justice system by being students in the METCO program versus not being in that program. Those are two things that I would encourage us all to think about and encourage our researcher to think about as well.
First, before I get into the question, I just want to say my dad was from Barbados, a short little black guy with a bald head. Grew up with him, thought he was a superhero. Until my first day in kindergarten, there was a taller, bald black guy. His name was Mr. Carroll Blake. And I just had what Carroll Blake, Mr. Blake, that I still call him when I'm 38 years old, has done for all the black men now and women that went to Lincoln is truly amazing. The first black man I knew who knew magic, and he did magic tricks daily, and got on the basketball court and kill us in basketball. And that just showed, coming from Boston and going 45 minutes to an hour to Lincoln and seeing a black man that looks like community and just doing phenomenal things in my life, my brother's life who was before me, and my sister's life. And we still, to this day, every now and then when we're all together at the Thanksgiving table, we talk about the Carroll Blakes, the Poppy Milners, the Amy Hoods. And I just want to say, before I start, thank you, Mr. Blake, for all you've done. And I'm sure the sentiment is from every person who graduated Lincoln, that when I went to Lincoln-Sudbury, it was it was different. Because Carroll Blake was you started off here. There's no room to get any higher. But a lot of what Kurtis said, what Patrick said, and what Nick said resonated with me. From sports is the thing that brings crosses barriers. Of racial barriers. Passing the ball, throwing the football. It doesn't matter if you're white or black. That's the commonality of winning a game. So sports and men, and we talked about it before we got on this panel, is the boys had, I feel like the boys had in every experience, and when the kids came to the State House, the boys always had a greater experience in METCO than women. And that's because of the brotherhood of sports, the friendship of sports, and the longevity of sports. I tried out for the wrestling team in Lincoln-Sudbury. The captain, I didn't make it because it's a lot of discipline to just wrestle. I'm from Dorchester. I want to punch someone and they slam me on the floor. So it's a lot of discipline to contain that. So the captain of the team, his name was Jared Nicholson. He was the captain of the team. He was amazing. He ended up going to Princeton. And for my first time trying out, we created a bond. He lived in Sudbury. We created a bond. And, my freshman year, we always just talked. And there was an opening position, I think, our junior year of being class president. I said, Jared, that should be you. He was like, no, Chris, I don't think so. I said, Jared, you're the captain of the wrestling team. You're the smartest kid I know in the school. It should be you. So the only thing you had to do to get nominated was write an essay. And he wrote a page essay. He put it in, and we did a whole campaign around Jared Nicholson, and he won. Now he's the mayor of Lynn. And we still have that, we still talk on a daily basis. So, and that's just from sports. Me just being like, hey, I think I'm a little tough. I need to be on the wrestling team, but that didn't work out. And also, going off what Nick said, and just being classified, special ed. As soon as you get in there, boom. That's in itself. No need to talk about that. And just I wasn't surprised of all the data. It really, wasn't really surprised. Me and Kurtis was sitting there just, looking at the data and just like, that's true, that's true, that's true, that's true. So yeah, that's it.
As I watch the presentation and I listen to these very phenomenal individuals, especially up here on this board, the biggest thing to me is that we're all product of the METCO program. So what this says is that the METCO program actually works. METCO works, right? I have so many different thoughts, so let me try to bring it all in. For me personally, my mother ran Madison Park Community Centers for about 30 years. So I saw the other side of education and schooling, and I knew that I didn't want to go to the other side. And within my own neighborhood, I had my best friend went to Natick. My other best friend went to Lincoln-Sudbury and Lincoln. And I look at us, as I'm listening to the data, I put myself in that data and I watch my trajectory. Because I entered Lexington Public School since the first grade. So, I had issues with my teacher right off the bat. I had discipline. I was friends with the principal throughout probably my whole school year. Some of it was my fault, and I can acknowledge that. And but there's so many thoughts. The biggest thing I think for me is that I have a son that's in Lincoln now, and it was an automatic. It is a good school. It was an automatic decision for me that I wanted my son to be in the METCO program. And I actually had a conversation with him last night because if I was to tell my younger self something different, it would have been to take more attention with the relationships that I was forming within the district. Because I look for, fast forward now as an adult, I could have done a better job at interacting with my counterparts in Lexington. Because I see some of my other METCO friends, they have deep, meaningful relationships with some of these counterparts, and it's amazing. You get invited to weddings, or you get to help someone be, the mayor, and these lasting relationships, they're almost a lifetime. And you wouldn't normally have that without the METCO program. We just understand what we see on TV to be as a black person, or what we understand is to be as a white person. And from the results, this last thing I'm going to say is that out of all the maybe negative connotations behind black families, a lot of them are doing as good or better than some of our counterparts in some of the districts. And the biggest thing that I noticed is that white families have single-parent homes too. White parents have incarcerated families. So when you start breaking down those barriers and have those conversations, the kids start to notice we're just alike. And you figure out a different way to have conversations with people where it's not so awkward when you walk into a room full of white people or you walk into a room full of black people. So METCO works.
The last question is, what aspect of METCO do you think most impacted your work and your life?
Immediately, I was a straight A student in BPS. When I switched to METCO, I became a C student overnight, frustratingly. And one of the things I realized is I didn't know how to study well, right? I just was used to, I saw it, I figured it out, I'll take the test. Then I realized, wait a minute, there's another part to this, right? You gotta kind of work at it. So I would say one thing that it changed my life is it changed the way I thought and the way that I thought about my work and what I was passionate about. I was an athlete as well. I ended up going to college to do sports, but one of the things that never changed is I realized that I needed to put the same passion in the classroom that I was putting outside on the field, right? And before that, there was a disconnect, And one thing that I think the data didn't even show that changed my life is we don't talk a lot about the bounce back after METCO. Meaning, a lot of us end up going to HBCUs, right? So I went to a historically black college university in South Carolina right after. And that was because I felt like I needed to be around people that looked like me again, right? And we don't talk about that a lot because I think that could be a quantitative study in itself is why do people do that, right? And how? Because my entire graduating class went to HBCUs, right? And all of us, for different reasons, did it because it wasn't because we hated our METCO experience. We loved our METCO experience. But then I had a different experience going to an HBCU, right? And being in a room where people look like me, were there for scholarly work, who were trying to get, aspire to do different things, but also having professors that looked at me differently, right? That were like, the world won't take it easy on you, right? There was conversations that my teachers, I felt were uncomfortable having in METCO that were not uncomfortable at an HBCU, right? It's like, you are black, you are a man. The world is not gonna say, oh, I'm sorry, we'll make it easier for you. That's not how this works. Right, so being able to look at kind of what has changed and why did so many of us go to HBCUs, and I see one of my buddies in the back there that went to an HBCU with me. So that's just my kind of 2 cents from it.
What was interesting for me, I think METCO provided me a reference point, if anything else. Relationships, of course, were a big part of it, right? A lot of my relationships that I fostered during those years still are ever present in my life today in so many different ways. But the METCO experience, that opportunity to get on a bus and have solace for 45 minutes to an hour, right? You're seeing different things, you're doing it daily, you build up an appetite for a regimen and some level of discipline. But the reference point of what life could look like, right? And not just economically, because you're seeing different things. People's parents have different professions. Their houses look different. The cars are different. Their access, vacations are different. It gives you an opportunity to just see something that is a direct opposite of the environment that a lot of us are coming from, regardless of what the inside of your house looks like or what the makeup of your parents look like. You step outside on any block in Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, there aren't too many vistas. You have neighbors, you have direct abutters. That is very different when you get on a bus and you go out to any given suburb, right? You're able to just have some clarity of thought, which allows you to start to string together a life, or at least think about your life in a very different way. So if METCO gave me nothing, it gave me a reference point and the opportunity and the clarity to think a little bit more holistically about my life.
I thought METCO is an amazing program, so much that my 2 son and daughter go to Newton METCO right now. And besides waking up at 4:30 in the morning to catch a 5:30 bus, that instilled in me that I can wake up no matter how late I go to bed the night before. But as a legislator, there's 200 of us. There's 200 legislators, Senate and House of Representatives side. We cover every nook and cranny of Massachusetts. And of that 200 legislators, there are 24 black and brown legislators. So 200, now we drop down to 24. And of that 24, there are 7 black legislators. So out of 200, there are 7 black legislators. So going to METCO prepared me to already be in these rooms. I don't need to, be, I could be disruptive in a respectful way because I've been doing it since I was in kindergarten, and Mr. Blake can attest. Like, I could be disruptive and get my way, and being respectful for everything. And I know it opened my eyes to different things. One of my best friends, his name was Jason Haber. Jason Haber was a Jewish kid. I'm sure if I go back to my community, like, what is bar mitzvah? What's the difference between bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah? No one's gonna know. I knew at the age of 12, 13 years old what the difference was. I knew what Hanukkah was because we didn't have school. I knew who all these things was, and I knew what the world looked like outside of Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, and I was attentive to other people's needs right now in the State House because I know what my colleagues are celebrating. I might not know the full length of it, but I know as much of it as I need to know for a person that's not into it. So I love METCO for that, for just, shedding light on different cultures, different aspects of life, what other people may think, what you see in, having these difficult conversations, what to look for, how to approach difficult conversations, even though someone might not want to have difficult conversations. Like in 10th, 11th grade, I was having real difficult conversations on just life and being a black man in society, and having those conversations then and having it now, and just, it's the same thought process that when I go to having these table conversations with my colleagues, it's the same, I heard the same thing 20, when did we graduate? 20 years ago? 20 years ago that I'm hearing now. But, and just having that same, perspective of life, and just, trying to get your agenda across, your representing, the most people of color in Massachusetts. It's always great to bring their perspective to a person that may live in the Berkshires that has 0.001% people of color. So just that alone really resonates what I do today. And I get money for METCO, don't forget that.
What I took away from it started really early. When I started in the second grade, is when I learned about code switching, when I actually learned about code switching. And in the black community, our first best friends are our cousins. And after a field day, my cousins actually came out to me. And then from there, a game of Connect Four could turn into a Royal Rumble in my grandmother's living room because I won and I was called the white boy because I went to a white school. And from that moment, they don't realize that it might not have been the best way, but from the second grade on, I went to school every day, making sure that I wasn't a white boy and being my true, authentic self. So what it did for me, when I'm representing now, as this is my third year in Reading, when I became a director, there was only one black person in the entire district. It was a para. So in the central office, district leadership team, I'm the only black person. So I can know how to be my true, authentic self in white spaces, and I won't fold that for nothing. And I embrace that, and I tell our kids that, even to what you see on our Instagram page. Our Instagram, social media, our timeline is everything that I want our students of color to see, that I'm telling you it's okay to be you. This is our black culture. This embracing, be yourself is for the Reading suburban town to learn us and not to put a square in a circle. The suburban way is not the way. There's suburban and city. So everything I put even on our Instagram for our kids to see, it's about black culture being ourselves. It's about what he and other leaders in our community are doing in our community so that the white suburban families can see from our page what our community is really like. So those are things I don't waver on, and I make sure that our students know that it's okay to always be yourself. Even down to, like I said, I was the only staff of color. Last year we were able to bring in 7 medical coordinators who are school adjustment counselors. They are Haitian, they're Dominican, they're black, they're Puerto Rican, they're Brazilian. So they're all in every single building. So when our students of color walk into a building, they have a person that works with the entire school that they can go to that looks like them. And just as important it is for us, it's also important for the white students as well, to be able to go to an administrator in a building that is a person of color and not experience that for the first time when they get to college. So I don't waver on our students being their true authentic self, and being in a predominantly white space in elementary school has given me the Worrell, and shout out to my cousins too, for doing what they did to make sure that I was always myself.
I had a little chuckle because in my neighborhood, some of my friends used to call me little white boy too. And it was kind of funny because my mom was actually white. And I guess it's because I was the lightest skinned one in the neighborhood. But the biggest thing for me is, a couple things. Advocacy is probably one of the biggest things that I can take away from the METCO experience. Because as I told you in my last presentation, me and the principal were kind of friends. But had it not been for my METCO director, had it not been from my mom, my experience with the METCO program probably would have ended shortly than it did. And so as a parent now, and God bless my wife, it's you have to show up for your kids in these districts. It's not as simple as just put them on a bus and then let the district take care of them. Because if you do that, your child will probably fail at a higher rate than you would have the parents more involved. So from parents, you need that commitment. And then for me, being half white, even going to my family reunions, with the white side of the family is just a whole deal within itself. And going through the METCO program, I'm already used to kind of navigating this space. So when I got into the workforce, it was the same thing. All the higher ups were white, and here I am with my suit and tie, and I can navigate these spaces. But for me, I think one of my fondest memories is, I was probably an average student throughout most of my career, and it really didn't click until probably 11th grade when I finally made honor roll and carried that over into college and making dean's list. Slight brag. It did, right? I did. But it was for me. I met a teacher. Her name was Robin Strizak, and she was my English teacher. And that probably really kind of helped change the trajectory of what I wanted to do with myself. On top of my parents telling me, "Hey, look, boy, you about to graduate, so if you're gonna stay at this house, you either need to go to the Army, you need to go to college, or you need to go to work." And I was already tired of my mom's mouth, so it was an easy decision for me to go off to college. So, for that teacher and really making that connection, even though she didn't look like me, I was able to relate to her. And it's sad that it took from first grade all the way to 11th grade for that to really happen. But I would do it again.
There was 4 things I was thinking about. The first is I'm taking away a powerful relationship with my mother. My mother is in her 80s and my dad is in her 80s. There's about a 16-year gap between me and my siblings. And one was murdered in the city of Boston. And we all were METCO students, Lexington, Sharon, and myself, Natick. So I take away my mother's sacrifice to get up, to get to the METCO office on the bus, to wait there, to sign us up one by one for this program. She's from Georgia, South Carolina, and my dad's from South Carolina. So they saw something and they were able to sacrifice to get it. And so I think about that all the time. The second thing I think about is being exposed to, I love tennis. I wouldn't have known that I love tennis till I went out for my tennis team and was varsity singles. And I love that sport. So I think the overall encouragement to participate in activities, I'll remember that. I remember being diagnosed with a learning disability, but not letting that, my counselors and my teachers did not let that stop me. I'm still figuring out how I actually graduated early. I didn't do my senior year at Natick. They enrolled me at UMass Boston to take college classes my senior year. And then I came back to graduate with my class at Natick in that year. I'm still figuring out because I wasn't the smartest, my grades weren't the best. I was a poor, average student. And they still said, you can do this. So I was at college. And so I kind of missed the senior skip day and all of that. But I'm walking through UMass, campus, like 16, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm taking classes as a senior. So I didn't do my senior spring semester. But I'm still thankful for that. So I'm taking away learning that even if I'm average, I still have opportunities. There's still things I can do as well. And I think one of the things that makes me unique with my experience is I went to summer school. And many people don't know that. I actually was a Natick high school student. I did poor in an English class. And they said, you need to go to summer school. And I was like, well, I want to go to Boston. Send me at least to go to Boston. So I went to English high for a summer to study because I was on probation. And I thought, okay, I'm here. But it was a great experience. And I did, no knock to the English high, but Mrs. Gonfer, who I love, ended up being my teacher who went to my church. But I did recognize, wow, I'm really learning a lot at Natick. I was so far ahead from the curriculum that they were studying, and I'm like, whoa, I read this in like 8th grade. So it was such an epiphany that it also changed my mindset by the time I got back to high school. So I think from the parents to the sports to I graduated early to being diagnosed with a learning disability, and then like everyone said, the narrative of I learned how to I call it social capital. It's really called social capital, right? It's not just the money, which is what I teach my students. It's not just income that gives you social capital. Your network, where you went to school, all of that will give you capital. So I utilize the fact that I went to Natick. I landed it. I grew up in Academy Homes in Roxbury. When I needed to be Academy Homes, I was Academy Homes. When I needed to be Natick, I went to Natick, right? And so the job that I have now, which will be my last point of what I took away, is I work at Harvard Kennedy School right now, and I researched everybody's bio that worked in that entire office. My clients say I call it collecting intelligence. I like to see what I can find out about people. And I went back to, I could tell you where this director's kid went to school. And when I found one lady whose daughter went to Natick, you best believe I added it to my resume, which they say don't add your high school to your resume. I had a little note right there, Natick High School METCO graduate, and went in like, oh, so how are things going in the Metro West area? You know, I mean, I leveraged that. So I think all of this, as everyone said, from the family to the sports, to the community, to leveraging access to going to summer school as a METCO student, to coming back and graduating basically high school a year early from my classmates. My experience is unique, but overall, I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experiences. I've heard a lot of it through my own personal relationships with each of you and your trajectory in this program. And I remember that one time, Patrick, you had said in one of our TV shows, you had said that what the program gave you was confidence. The confidence to walk into spaces and know that you can be there and that you belong there. And I think that's one of the things that I find the most impactful for our students, that they can enter any space and feel like they can navigate through that and they belong. And I tell that to my daughters all the time. I was like, wherever you enter, you belong there. Own that space. You've been used to this your whole life. You can own it. But I also, just like they said, I've seen my own children go through the struggle of identity. That, you know, people are saying that they're acting too white and they don't even know how to act half the time because of those instances, to the point of tears sometimes. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to be acting. So there's a lot of trade-offs, but at the end of the day, what I have seen is the closing of achievement gaps of our students, the amount of knowledge that they go into college knowing. There was an article some time ago in the Globe that actually said that for METCO students, the question is what college I'm going to go to, and for other students is if I'm going to college. So I think there's an incredible amount of benefits to the program, but it's an incredible amount of sacrifice and an incredible amount of trade-offs. And that just tells you how systemic racism has led us to a place where we have to give up a lot of ourselves just to get the opportunity that we deserved all along. proud to be leading this organization and to be closing gaps for Black and Brown students. But there's so much more work to do at the suburban, with the suburban staff and leadership. And I hope that I applaud the staff who work there in these spaces every day. It is not easy being one of the only ones. It is not. I also remember, I have so many stories, but I'm not going to bore you with these. But I remember that the first time that my daughter felt super, super proud in being in Brookline and felt like she belonged was when she had her first Black teacher. And it was a Black woman, Miss McPherson. She's still here now. And she said, "Mommy, I want to be like Miss McPherson." I go, "Why?" "She looks like me, she loves math like me, and she's a woman like me." And I am so glad because Miss McPherson realized the impact that she had on students of color as a math teacher, and she now is actually a social worker in the METCO program. She left her math career to go up and be into social work because she wanted to personally help students in a more socially emotional way because she saw what our students were losing, during their time there as well. So, these are some of the experiences that we see happening. And these, I remember, my kids remember just those few teachers that just look like them and they hold on to them to the very end. So I want to thank you all that came here today for your very personal investment in the METCO program. All of you here will have a different job, a different leadership opportunity, a different cash cloud and connection, whatever your 3 C's are. What is it that you are doing within your network to actually have an impact on the students of color that are in our Commonwealth, that are in our city, that are in our program? You obviously give because you care about this. So please reach out and figure out how you can be more supportive. Elizabeth, I am so thrilled to have you partner with us in this amazing work and to see the work, like you said, of more recent students as we begin to invest in more programming, and also all of the ideas that you heard from the panel here as well that we want to definitely hear more of. We do have a summer school just for METCO students only that we run every single summer. It's extremely costly, about $170,000. Liberty Mutual helps us with that, and the Boston Foundation as well. But we do it because our METCO students need to be with themselves, and it is not to and it is actually to prepare them for the next year's academic work. And we're looking forward to a lot of our college and higher education work that we're doing as well to continue to close these gaps. All of these guys, you saw how a lot of them know each other. This is how small Boston is. These are all community leaders, community activists. They went to different schools, they went to different years of graduation, yet they all know each other personally, because that's one thing that I've also noticed about the METCO program. You get a lot of people that are civically engaged after they come back out of the program and they want to give back. So again, don't leave for the picture. And thank you so much for coming, everyone. And thank you so much for Elizabeth and to our panel. Thank you, everybody.